What's going on, guys? Daily Smartphone Gaming here, and today I'm going to be talking about a game that you can play on your phone. SEGA Heroes. The idea of grabbing a bunch of characters from the Sonic the Hedgehog, Golden Axe, Shinobi, Streets of Rage, Super Monkey Ball, Jet Set Radio, Phantasy Star, Crazy's Taxi, The House of the Dead, and Valkyria sounds like a good idea on paper, but it's an unfair puzzle game? Now, I've been playing this game for a while, and if you've been subscribed to my channel, you know I'm up to part 143 of my walkthrough, which, not including all my offline grinding, puts me at a minimum of around 35 hours in this game. So I've got a fair bit of experience up my sleeve for this. SEGA Heroes is a 3-match puzzle RPG made by SEGA, or Sega, depending on your poison, and it is strategically designed to cash in on your nostalgia. It's a very simple game, a little bit like Candy Crush or any other puzzle game that's out there at the moment, but SEGA has done something a bit unique to get you to spend money on this game. Let me explain. So the game itself is very straightforward. As I mentioned, it's a puzzle game, and the aim of the game is to match 3 or more gems in order to get your character to attack. Once you keep attacking, you build up a little meter underneath your character, and you can do a super move. There's also another way to do a super move. When you match at least 4 gems of the same color, it'll create a special tile. When you do a match with that tile again later, you're going to get your alternate second super move. Sounds simple, right? No. Okay then, so there's 3 types of attacks. The unfortunate thing about that is that the computer only has 2. That's right, and you'll never guess which 2 they are. Yep, they're 2 special moves, and they alternate them every time. Now the reason this bugs me, and it's also a little bit unfair, is because when you're playing through the game yourself, whenever you manage to pull off a super move, or you generate enough energy to do a super move, you feel like you've earned it. And the fact that whenever you're fighting a computer character, which is 99% of the time in this game, it makes the game feel unbalanced. Another reason it bugs me is the fact that the computer gets to do them constantly, but it also, which is a very important thing, especially with this game, it artificially raises the difficulty. To me, it's not a true representation of how hard the game is, because the computer is essentially cheating. If you think about it, it will be the equivalent of playing Street Fighter, Alpha 3, or any of the newer Street Fighters, and instead of normal punches and kicks, they have their super bar filled straight from the start, or all 3, every round, after every attack, and instead of normal punches and kicks, they only did the EX super moves, or their full 3-bar super move, which constantly recharges. Another example would be playing Pokemon, and the character gets to use Hyper Beam and Solar Beam every single time, alternating, with no recharge time, no limit on PP or anything, and they sometimes stun you or force you not to attack them. I would not make for a very fun last gym battle or anything, and there's not a lot of games I've played where the mechanics are in the favor of the computer. Games do get difficult and get harder, but it always seems fair. It seems like there's a chance for you to beat them. And when you get to the higher levels in this game, it really feels like it's just there to stop you, to make you think, oh no, I'm not strong enough, I should spend some money on this game. At first I looked past this and I realized maybe they were able to make a star match and do the attack straight away. It didn't make sense though when their second move, all of a sudden they have a full super move, unless they got like every tile was one color and they did one swipe and all of a sudden it was full and they were able to do 2 attacks. It doesn't make sense, it doesn't add up. If you do the math and you think about it for a second when you're playing the game, if you watch how the enemy attacks with any of the SEGA franchise characters, it is very suspect to say the least. Now the problem I have with that is that this is a free game, but of course you can spend money on certain in-game items to make your team stronger. Now I don't agree with this for a few simple reasons. So kids will absolutely play this game. They're going to think they're not good at it, and they're going to ask their mum or their dad to buy in-game items to try and get further in the story. But the moves themselves were designed by default to give you an advantage, so the fact that the computer gets to use them every single time gives them a crazy advantage compared to your average Joe, who is still going to have to do their 1-match attack, build up their meter, or manage to get a 4 and then a 3. There's no way that you can level it out without them actually changing the mechanics themselves. I'll give you an example. Let's use Sonic the Hedgehog. So his normal attack when you match 3 is a spin dash. It attacks whoever you've selected, and that's it. Simple enough. His 2 super moves, one is a big powered up spin dash. So he goes across the screen, he attacks all 4 of the enemy characters straight away. And his second one is one that he'll dash forwards and backwards on one character, but do double the damage. And if he has a big match on that, he can do it again. So he could have 1, 2, 3, 4, he could have 4 attacks, or 6, depending on how biased the computer feels like being. You don't really play against Sonic, because otherwise the computer would constantly be attacking you and you'd never get a shot in. And that's just one character. The computer always uses 4, and they all have their own moves. The list of effects these moves have are pretty important. If you get hit with one of these, you can either be stunned, hit multiple times, they'll generate a shield, they'll generate pieces that hurt you over time that you have to make a mash to get rid of, they'll attack you and force you to take damage over time, like with bleeding damage that you can do nothing about, it'll stop you from healing, or it'll get pieces on the board that will heal them over time. Or they'll heal themselves. Now, I don't want you to think that it's impossible to progress in this game without spending money. I've gotten very far and have managed to not spend a single cent. Here's a little rundown of ways you can level up your team. There's a campaign, so this is where your main story mode is, and after you've 3-starred a level, you can loot the previous levels to get items or hero shards to power up your heroes respectively. There's a survival mode. Now this is a mode that actually gets harder the more you play it, which I think is really, really cool. It rewards you with currency that you can use to quickly buy hero shards so you can rank them up and get them a lot stronger very quickly, especially on the ones that only cost $250. You can get them to 4 or 5-star very, very, very quickly. There's a Beyondering mode. This is like a harder alternate story mode where you have to use other characters that aren't part of the main roster. After you've beaten the first few levels, you can loot the levels just like in the campaign to max out your team further. Now, both the Beyondering and the campaign do run on a, what is it called? The thing with the, do run off energy. So obviously after you've played them a few times, you'll have to wait, which a lot of people don't like, but these are the sort of games you can sit and play once and then go back to it the next day and you'll be fully stocked up. It is a very casual game if you want to look at it that way. There are challenge events as well. So these change every few days and they will give you resources mainly used to level up your team and boost their attributes. The best thing about these challenge events is that after you've beaten them once, the next time it rolls around, so if one happens on Tuesday and then goes away on Wednesday, comes back on Thursday, for example, if you've already done 4 of the levels, when you go back and play them again on Thursday, they're already beaten, so you can loot and get the same rewards that you would have in the past without having to actually beat the level. So it saves a lot of time and it is a quick way to boost your team up. After I realized that, my team went from being okay to being really, really powerful very quickly. There are guilds in this game as well, so you can join a guild to basically all the stuff you've done previously. The more you do it as a guild, it'll boost up your ranking. I would say join my guild, but unfortunately, after I set it up within the first hour, it was totally full. So give it a shot. If you can get into it, fantastic. I'll put a little picture of my guild name here. But if you can't, join any guild because as long as they're high performing, it is going to give you a fair few benefits. And the last 2 things are the arena and adventure events. Now, the arena is very cool. This is a very fair area where you actually play against other characters' teams. There's none of this only super moves. They do use their normal ones. The mechanics work exactly the same as they do with your team, as you'd expect them to do in every part of the game, but they definitely happen here. And there are adventure events. Now these are usually catered to individual characters or individual franchises, and the idea behind these is basically as you progress through, you'll earn trophies. And then after you get X amount of trophies at the end of the event, if you're one of the highest ranking or X amount of percent, you can earn either a character or a bunch of loot back. If you do have the time and patience to go through and rank very high in these, it does pay off because you get characters that people are purchasing for $30, $50 for nothing. I mean, for your time, but you don't actually have to spend any money. So those are just a few ways that you can level up your team without having to spend any money, so you don't have to shell out. If you do get stuck, there are plenty of ways you can go back and actually level up your team, as you can see that I've done. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with freemium games. But the idea behind the in-app purchases is that you buy them because you want to level up. You shouldn't be encouraged to buy them to try and make up for an artificial difficulty scale that never goes away from the moment you start playing the game. Now, it's going to sound like I don't like the game, which obviously isn't true. I do enjoy playing it. I just need to talk about this fact that most people are most likely unaware of. But let me also say, the enemy characters they have in this game aren't as strong by default, but when you come up against any 4 of these actual SEGA franchise characters, it makes the game a lot harder than it has any right to be. Now, the game is still fun. I wouldn't have played it for this long if I didn't think it was good at all, and I did realize this kind of early on. The music is fantastic. It's a very nice score that accompanies you on your journey. It's done very well, but most SEGA music falls under that category anyway, so there's no surprise there. The character design in this game is great. It has a lot of character. They're all small cartoon sprites, but they're very detailed. You can easily tell what characters are from what game, and seeing them all exist in the same universe and perform their special attacks is pretty cool. The gem animation is cool too, I guess, but I mean, how could it not be? You can't really mess up gem animation unless you do nothing for the animation and you just make them disappear. You've got no sound effect, but they obviously didn't do that, and it came out pretty well. It's a nice polished look for when you're playing the game. The strategy side of this game is also pretty interesting as well. Something it took me far too long to realize at the start is that if you tap on the character on the opponent's side up the top, you can choose to attack them directly. Now this made the game much easier when I was starting out, and I was able to focus on the characters who did the most damage to me and progress in the campaign much quicker. All in all, SEGA Heroes is a fun game. If you can look past the fact that it feels like SEGA are trying to squeeze money out of you at every turn, then I definitely recommend you play it. It starts off easy, it has a small learning curve, and it would be a lot of fun for at least a few days depending on what sort of games you like to play. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Daily Smartphone Gaming. If you've liked this video, make sure to like the video. If you've disliked this video, make sure you click on that thumbs up button as well as subscribe so you can really let me know how much you disliked this video. Links to my Discord and my Patreon are in the video description below if you'd like to support the show or recommend any games for me to play. Have a fantastic day and go play some SEGA Heroes.